unless other Nigerians look at us as fellow human beings, not people that are victim of circumstance, being at the central and being victimized by our own resources.
Why do you think you're being victimized by your
To
own
an extent,
resources?
in the case of FCT, there has never been an administrative placement of a leadership to any person. So we're only at the verge of mercy, with whom become the minister, and how he chooses to make us feel like people who deserve development, and how, whether or not to.
This is Volume. Thank you so much for joining in for another wonderful episode of Volume with FemiDlive. I'm grateful that everybody who has taken their time to watch, to subscribe, and to leave their active comments. Your comments bring so much delight every time we see them. I'm so grateful. And yes, the entire team is grateful. I am Femi D. Amele. My guest today is Honorable Sadiq Abubakar Ahmad. Well, he works extensively within the framework of the APC, a political party in Nigeria. He's strategic, and his intelligence has provided him the opportunity to be on quite a number of committees, other committees, different ways in which one would function. And yes, he's been doing this for many years. And of interest is the fact that he's an FCT indigene from Kwali Area Council precisely. His perspective on deliverables and what could be delivered through the APC for different indigenes across the country becomes of interest. But he's sitting across me today to respond to questions around, are there grassroots movements, even as some of the major political organs, I would say, or should I say politicians, are crossing the carpet or moving away from the carpet or taking the carpets completely? And I do wonder what the build-up for this will be like for 2027. He's my guest on the show today. Welcome, Honorable.
Good to have me, this wonderful man.
Let me start off by talking about you being an FCT indigene. And I like to bring this up because sometimes everybody has this perception that if you're a Nigerian politician located in Abuja, then you're a federal component and nobody remembers your state of origin, or possibly you're from the FCT. Sometimes it's believed that if you're from the FCT, or should I say Abuja, you're almost going extinct politically.
Yeah, it's a good question, and where we all queue in trying to actualize the status that the administration that brought us the capital, it's supposed to be a blessing in disguise, but where we are at the moment, we've not ascertained to an extent, despite the constitution provisions, court rulings trying to make us have a state status, where we are as an indigene. It's not like strategically we're getting extinct. No, politically and power-wise. But thanks to this administration, for the first time in almost 40 years that we've been recognized to even serve at the Federal Executive Council minister. We have a minister for the first time, thanks to this administration. But prior to this time, from the military administration, we've only have one person from Abaji that was a minister. And this time around, after 40 years of such agitations, calling, court rulings, make FCT looks like a state. Oh, they used to say 36 states and FCT. What did AND stand for? Since when we were kids, we've been wondering and trying to see. The constitution provision wasn't silent about it. It says, and I quote, that the National Assembly and the Senate shall serve as our House of Assembly. And so also, the provision did not go silent. Despite it says there is nobody in Nigeria from any other person that is greater than any other Nigeria. That we have issues surround some salient but very sensitive matters. One of which is, even in the representation status, some states that are lesser in sizes and numbers of people have a senatorial representation of 3, while FCT we have 1. a lone senator. And it means, despite the sizes and the delineation, we have issues at to the political representations. And that alone is putting us more at the extinct level because we don't have the financial muscles to fight from the central government or the central part of the FCT. Because it's of note that it's important to also know that the FCT is as large as 8,000 kilometer square land area. Percentage of this was part of the reasons why the movement and centralization of FCT or the federal capital or the capital of Nigeria to move here was because of the inavailability or heading towards a lagoon or the river Iran area. They don't have the landmass we have in FCT. But of note to also importantly acknowledge the fact that that all died down with the earlier planning and the estimation of the master plan. They planned the city at the detriment of we that are indigenous, are people that are within the FCT. Because the moment you're heading out of the gate and you start approaching places like Karumajiji, Alita, and all that, Tigusa, all of those places are not planned. Little to the interest of, because the populace, I believe, are not people that matters much in the country. Let me not allow the sentiments.
No, but your sentiments are valid
Yeah.
because it's the perception that we all try to understand, and this is providing quite an insight.
Yeah, obviously, because if you check at this, of all the area, we have what we call the Federal Capital City, which is the FCC. It's in phase 1, 2, 3 to 4. By extension now, in little interest, it gets extended to phase 5. And in all of this phasing, it's the regional aspect of the planning that takes it, because that is it's the urban area, and that is why you have the Abuja Metropolitan Management Council, who are the city managers, to manage them. And we have the extension, which is the regional components. Those regional components were at earliest of the government in FCT. We used to have the two type of the allocations you have, or the title in the ownership of land. We have the customary and the statutory. The customary has always been there because before, the system that augments the system that even lands became alienable or non-alienable was the Land Use Decree and the Land Use Act of 1978 and 1979 respectively, that came to unseat the normal land tenure system. That was a system that was recognized where chief can give lands and all that. But even the first attempt to have planning in Nigeria was the land ordinance system in Lagos. That was in 1912, after the amalgamation, before they broke out of the bubonic plague. That was a problem that was raised as a result of environmental sanitation degradation in Lagos. That was the first attempt to have an ordinance. Then the system becomes the urban and regional planning law that standardized after the land use degree. Who allocates lands, who owns lands, is an issue. Part of those are the reasons why now you have an FCT that I said the urban is urban, but there's no even regional component. For the past 9 years, there've been suspension of approval even within the local land or the area council as a result of attempt to harmonize the land use degree or the land allocation system, or having a central land bank. People are ignorant of even the land mass in FCT.
And you do say it's about 800 kilometers in terms of its size.
Yeah, the size.
Okay.
Square meter.
Square meter. And we're still going to come back to issue of land, and because it's of interest. Well, it's one thing to argue about the land, it's another thing to argue about the people. Let me draw you back a little bit into the issue of the people. You talked about 36 states and the FCT.
Yeah.
That similar phrase appears when it comes to the Electoral Act, right? And we saw that play out even in the last election, where it was debated about who won what And if the FCT was a cherry pie, or should I say a cherry on top of the pie, which is people only consider the FCT when they really want to just show that I won and this is part of my numbers that puts me to qualify. What do you make of that?
It's very sensitive, the question just asked about, because when the Supreme Court ruling come in justifications that FCT is not an FCT, it is assumed to be the 37th state of FCT. Or it was on that ground that our principal, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, got sworn in, because at
That's
that
the
time,
APC.
yeah, obviously, because we believe and say something about when you say and when you make it look like the President of the Federal Republic should serve as the governor of the FCT through powers invested in the minister. It's a big thing, because there's a difference between executive powers and elective powers. So if these are not ascertained and they are not defined, they get to a moment where you become, as a human being, you're trying to do the avatar of America and the issue of how they
College votes.
obviously how they got the Red Indians got out of it, because when United States of America was meant to be called a no Newfoundland, was because it was assumed that it was no man's land. Whereas history have it documented that there were people, but it was idea of uniting the states of people that are stateless or people that had come from an original state to come. We're not different as FCT, and we are not bad to always ask of what belongs to us. We have cases. We have court rulings that got that of Baba Panya was the last that happened in 2012. And the ruling was very clear that FCT be assumed or be treated as. But what I ask that is more sensitive is, are we sizes not big enough to have 3 senators, 6 House of Representatives, or 4 where necessary? Because we house a number of, as much as we are very receptive, and as much as history will never forget the fact that during the Murtala administration, the attempts to have from neighboring states like Kogi, Niger, sizes of land that were cut and given in the project called Abuja or FCT, what have turned out to be the benefits of those original persons that are Nigerians of high standard, of high collectivism, and to end an unsatisfying rewarding. I always feel like a son of the soil, so I will always have a time to tell people that this state is a state where people feel we're in a stateless, we're stateless to an extent. But to be honest, to be grateful to the current president, we must appreciate him, because part of his campaign promises, one was fulfilled, and we believe that it will be sustained. And for every reason, we are indebted to these 2 singular honor. First, giving us a president, a minister, an indigenous son in Honorable Zafania Gisalu, Right Honorable Zafania Gisalu, and also
that's in the House of Representatives.
A former House of Representative being the new the minister representing FCT, even though if the ministry was special duties, but he is partly allowed.
But not the apex office leading the FCT.
Yeah, but he's an indigene. We have a lead. The recipe for more is appreciation. So we've appreciated the first to know that we are expecting or anticipating in future time, because he did not harm giving us the minister he gave us. We are appreciative
but the FCT, if I would say, forgive my interruption. Yeah. I mean, Senator Philip Aduda, if I'm not mistaken, is an indigene of Abuja,
sure,
right?
Yeah, he is.
And he represented for 24 years.
For 20 years.
20 years, right. Yes. Okay, that's 2 decades.
2 decades.
Elected by his own people, I presume so.
Sure.
Did he convey and represent the people the best way he could?
It's not about picking up characters. if the conditions of the representations and the platform at which you argue is that of number, and you're one senator out of other states who have every three representing them, he's disabled in the first place. He can always make assumptions, but he cannot manipulate the numbers to win arguments. House matters or winning cases or winning presenting is different, passing them to laws and making them work. He did what he did. And sometimes I feel like if you're ignorant of some representation at some level, you would think he did less, but he did what he could.
So his presenting was possible intact.
Yeah.
Or what about his representation?
But the numbers were not in his favor.
That's within among his colleagues that he served.
He was even a principal officer, not forgetting, but a minority whip. So as a minority whip, despite he is principally placed, what are the chances that he could influence a majority in the House? It's always a political placement that placed him well. Okay, he was a minority whip, became minority leader after Abarabe dropped aside. But whatever that we're saying, for the growth, we have lots of issues that some are constitutional matters and some are matters that, unless other Nigerians look at us as fellow human beings, not people that are victim of circumstance, being at the central and being victimized by our own resources. Like every other state has.
Why do you think you're being victimized by your own resources?
When you come to a state that it's almost a stateless because the capital of the nation, you assume what places you here is the administrative balancing and nature of the settlement of city. It used to be Lagos. But at that time it was Lagos. I bet you things were normal because there was still a state form, and yet the federal government was operating differently at Dombara. At that time, people know, and even the placement, despite they were northern leaders, as history will have it, they were northern placed, but yet they were still answerable to the situations because still there was a state governor and there was the... But in the case of FCT, there has never been an administrative placement of a leadership to any person. So we're only at the verge of mercy, with whom become the minister, and how he chooses to make us feel like people who deserve development, and whether or not to.
Why feel? Because you've used the word feel about 3 times now. Abuja Indigenes and how they feel. And how they feel about being represented. And I mean, you have led a good number of some of the Indigenes in your own right, in your own space, being, in one way or the other, representing, working for politicians, working for the APC as well. And that tells me a little bit about you understand the feelings of the people.
Sure.
When it comes to the polls, Abuja Indigenes, the way they feel about politicians, especially the political party who is in the center. For example, the APC is in the center. The last election, if my memory serves me right, the APC didn't even win the FCT.
Yeah, the case with the pool, I was actually the director, contact and mobilization.
So it makes people feel like
the Presidential Campaign Council in FCT.
Yes.
At that time, everybody has a right to be angry because for the 7 years of the ministerial placements in the last election, FCT were totally out of it. Not even the representation. There was none from APC. It was 2 members, PDP, and the 1 Senate, PDP. And again, in the appointments, there was none federal appointments for any of the APC members.
So that was revenge voting.
It wasn't revengeful. And the tsunami that came with the movements of the obedient, knowing fully that because of the hope that was originally envisaged to have a population of 3 million, is now having almost 7 million. That's crazy. Nobody says about the population expectation from 1990-91 census to what was the population of FCT. What was it when it was actually, when the master plan of FCT or FCC was defined. And now all of this populace, or the population I told you, within the city center, Maitama used to be a native council. with their local chief. Up till now, you have the extension. The placement of the Maitama chief now is in somewhere around Kuba.
So he oversees
I
Maitama,
just want to. He oversees Maitama. He
Maitama,
stays
but
and
he
farm
stays
with
in
Maitama. The
yeah.
Katampe being originally Gishiri, the National Stadium being originally the burial ground for the for all the who is who in FCT original inhabitants. All of these things are things that history have them documented.
So
But being on the physical and
Maitama,
the
but then he oversees the affairs
yeah,
from
obviously.
Kubwa.
So, but what we're saying about the elections is totally a strategy, a master gamer, and what you present on table. One of which is what is the campaigns for every person. At that time we came to the elections, everybody, some were feeling not satisfied with the situations, while some were feeling we deserve more. And the tsunami of Labour Party was not just in FCT, but for the larger number of people at the city centre are not indigenous. That must be read out. For the larger number, we have people
So
in
do you think
Gwarinpa.
the non-indigens often convey the sentiments of the entire population of people who reside in Abuja?
No, at the
Do
time
you think they outnumber the
at the time they
indigens
were
now?
mindless about what is the political scenario. But when it came to Labour Party, that was when the scenario changed. Before now, it used to be a 50-50 APC PDP.
No, but I recall President Buhari didn't. I mean, he was very displeased to have lost. I think in Aso,
No, in
Aso
the
area,
villa, the
in the
issue is
villa,
that what,
where he
but
actually
the
commands from.
sensitivity of it is that you can't win a place that all of you are registered in your states. It's simple. It's a mathematics. You registered, you have a mother state that you must go and contest because that's your political constituency. That is more reason why if Abuja is not given the light it deserves, we will keep having such kind of conversation because over and over, elections will come. You have to go, not even with the minister currently that despite the amount of working, he needs to be in his state to deliver president, not in FCT. At that situation, you will not say people in his house. It's possible his security man is not an APC. He too might not be, but he works for a principal that he needs to deliver. What we're saying is differently, but we're still bringing the same issues because in winning elections, it's simple arithmetics and calculations. What are the logics? What are the machineries in place? You all went because all of you are in the villa. All of you have a mother state. When election come, you leave. So people that registered are probably not even people from Villa. They're people from maybe Yanya, and it's occupied by people who from what's it called,
Nasarawa.
Timbashet. All of these people come in easement to register at the polling unit and they declare. So such are not like states where you lose your polling unit, where you cast votes and you influence the radiance of what is your personality in that polling unit.
But the implication is that politicians who count on the FCT, or should I say Abuja, one way or the other, may not be privy to this calculation where you say there's an exodus of voters when it's time for election. All they see is that you do me that, I do you this later down the road, which sometimes affects what happens to.
Obviously, Mr. Femi, like you said, I was privileged to be in the campaign council of President Buhari, be returning officer for Northwest.
Okay.
Which was the Kardashians, we call them KKK, Kasina, Kaduna, Kanu. Yeah, because at that time we know votes had comes in and they come in numbers. I was actually one of the person in the situation room. And what I've always said is that when you analyze politics without analyzing oppositions, you are out of it. We have it differently. Nigerians did not notice. Buhari himself as a figure stands the only opposition from 2003 to he became the president in 2015 till he exceeded in 2023. Him alone was a 10 million vote man. And he proved that in CPC. That he moved, despite the strategy, the fight, we don't even know whether to believe whether we had it easy with the outgoing administration that even we inherited. We're not sure about the situation. We had change of currency, absence of currencies, and those alone were masses to an extent, and it didn't hit us easy. Not even the elections. Elections in Nigeria became, it was, Asiwaju was rightly voted, even when people think money was used. I used to say, to an extent, it plays his loyalists, the numbers he controlled and have voted him. And we were lucky that three strong men in the last election in 2023, in 2019, they were all in one bucket. Kwankwaso, Atiku, Peter Obi as the vice. All of them were presidential aspirants in 2023. It's a simple arithmetic. And that's why I still said, up till now, instead of forming a formidable opposition, you're having a coalition. A coalition is an interest of an inside. We believe, and we're believing that.
Would you have been comfortable if they formed an opposition?
That's because I am a Nigerian who has been in this pocket. I know that it will hardly get to a time. We're not against them. All of them are wonderful politicians. But for interest that is not of Nigerian first, it's an interest that is not going to hold water. And that's why you've been seeing from the highlight from the day of the coalition meeting till date. I'm not going to be the VP. I'm not going to be the president. I'm not going to be the VP. Who is saying who? A coalition of opposition. When opposition was static and was Buhari, it was only Buhari. Rally around and do the things that you will do. You have him as your president.
So with the coalition that has been created, and I can only imagine you, and I'm going to quote you when you do say Buhari was by himself a 10 million man. I mean, he had 10 million people who were interested in voting for him, even though at the point of votes, it never really crossed the 10 million mark. It lingered around 10, 12, sometimes ranging 11. And after his own election, I'm not sure anybody has crossed the 7 million mark, of course, because of the nature of the people involved.
Yeah, sure.
But the nature of these same people involved who have now come together to form a coalition. And like you said, and I'm just thinking about the position that it means for the indigenes of the FCT, for example. Do you think the people who reside in Abuja and indigenes from Abuja will take up more interest in President Tinubu if he chooses to run for 2027 election, and why?
On a very informed position, yes. Why? Because we're native. We're not very certain with the administrative city. But for the people at which I am one of from the rural area, they've seen what they were never expecting. Even when some of them did not actually vote.
What did they see?
Yeah, morals, especially the infrastructure boom. It's something that has has uplifted, has hyped the hope of a common farmer or a peasant farmer who has never seen a connect from his place of farm to the nearest market. That has just got to be in less than 2 years. They have done more than 150 kilometer roads for the rural areas or for the satellite town in FCT. Isn't that enough for them to believe that they have a son who represents them now in the Federal Executive Council meeting? All of this are things that we have two young persons as the mandate secretary. I seated here, I'm not also out of one of the governing council members. So by implications, they have a share or a test of power. Despite the determinant of FCT elections, as much as we want to do as native, we have a power vote of about 150 to 200,000 for the native. But yet, we have a population of the residents that are also not static and not also determined. But if they are around, they could be against the fold. But most of them, to a satisfactory extent, have believed that the government have been purposeful with a lot of things that have not done. But for interests that are personal and that could be personalized, some people might end up still having what they want to do and what they want to gain.
Let me spin it to you in another way, because when you do say interests that are personalized, and for example, the building of bridges, the roads of 150 kilometers that you do mention, you are taking up a doctorate, and it's a view already in urban planning. So you do know urbanization drives
Very well.
people who are rural
Sure.
back.
Sure.
It pushes them towards the outskirts.
Sure.
So it's easy to celebrate that those roads are there, but those roads, those bridges, I presume would start and pass through some of the existing farms. And that also means that if one were to think about the master plan, which has always been talked about 1978 master plan for the FCT, it is changing. Urbanization is being driven in. And if there's an example to look at, Lagos, for example, is in its prime. It is full. Abuja will be full with bridges, with roads, and the same indigenes who may have a short-lived celebration may say otherwise.
My PhD is in urban governance and development, and urban governance and development is actually the realizations of all the agitations and all the aspirations that ordinarily political or sometimes you need to be at strategic points. When you said urbanization processes, what makes some cities, even in the UK, are self-sufficient? Urbanization mustn't be everywhere. It must be at defined, but there's suburban plannings. Let them be self-sufficient so that they can have their boom. Just like a classical example is Kuje. Because of the roads and bridges, Kuje is almost connected. And by implication, Kuje have a population of almost close to 1.5 to 2 million right away. It's a boom, and it came as a result of facilities of linkage.
And the indigenes are losing their land as
No,
well, because a lot of estate buyers or growers are also buying some of those places.
This was one thing that I said that was salient at the beginning. What the FCT even want and deserve is having a regional component of planning where they can also own these things, have them, and yet they can be they're models of planning right from time, like the Broad Acre City by Lord Broad Wright. It was a concept that was adopted. It's a Broad Acre City. It's a design that brought about the roadside civilization you see today, where you have filling station and you have acre of land in between the filling stations to provide buffer zone to them. They were all documented in theoretical aspect. But what we're saying differently, even with the FCT, in every state they have the urban development board and they have the regional component in local government areas. But the 6th area council used to have assigned zonal managers. Those also have been called the last 6 years ago. So if there's anything that has to do with the rural land, it's not in the rural company anymore. It has come back to become an inside house. Whatever that is done with the land is done with an urban and regional planning that is more like urban and urban planning. And
Favorably for the intellectuals, but maybe not for the indigenes.
The indigenes, obviously, like I said, are on their lands. Regardless of what is going to happen, they are always considered. And that's why you have places within the city center that have refused to take shape and refused to get upgrade or urban renewal. Places like Garki, like Akibu, like Durumi, like Jabi, Mr. Biggs. These are areas that I saw to developmental and any stride of such. But what is it that causes it? It's only because they have refused to do the indigents and incorporation or integration of them as part of the plan, because they met them, you can't unseat them. So when you dare do this, what is at the repercussion or the receiving end is what is happening. Garki had been resettled. I supposedly supposed to be resettled at Apo. That didn't happen. The whole of Dusi Apo has been moved to Wasa. You don't move people that have a chief. Who would become a chief of who? If he lives as chief of Dusi, where do he become a chief of who? We have a staying of about 300, 400 years in a place, and all of a sudden, because development come, it woo you off? No, such are not done. And when they are incorporations and things like that, the political scenario in FCT is different from agitations of such valuables when everybody have his land? The most valuable thing in what we have as our resources, just like Niger Delta have oil, we have land, and our lands are very, very sweet in a way that it is more like a uh, national cake for some persons that care to do. And that's why even the green, the envisaged Abuja that was supposed to be Garden City of tomorrow is no longer Garden City because even the green has been consumed. All in the agitations of wanting to stay within the city center. But in a more functional and every world, no bourgeoisie or no rich man stays in the city center because these are supposed to be collector of all general services terminating there. And check every city of the world. You will have that because that's why you have the central seaway. That's why you have your terminals where the bus rapid transit, the tube, all of them had that hub of the city center, but we have a different case. They are supposedly administrative area and little residential has all been turned to commercials and all. Everybody want to stay within the city center. By extension, you keep expanding this inward, forgetting the fact that you have an abundance of almost 5,000 kilometers square. In addition, that you can push development and push infrastructure to connect. The idea that they said planning was a necessity that was mother of invention. Invent and think outward. I can't be a fellow of the Nigerian Institute of Town Plan and stays without saying the attribute and what the town planning has been trying to do in order to make this a reality. But it needs power. It needs people to listen to know because not everybody will have the know-how. But if you have the know-how and you don't have the usage, it's how now.
Okay, well, talking about how now. So I'm thinking about insecurity. As you have it, there's the insecurity where people say, "Oh, maybe if you move closer to the center, the insecurity level is different." But talking about insecurity at a level for farmers, even the indigenes here, and I can only start to imagine what one needs to say to people who are resident or indigenes in the FCT or in Abuja and dealing with that.
Yeah, there was a time, neighboring the states we're a center of unity. In every of the advanced targets of whoever is a terrorist, it's terror, any of the attempts of making anything. The soft target is the capital. And that won't happen without using the bushes that have been abandoned in the name of living development. So they comes to the pocket states and stay within the bushes. And there were times that we knew that there were lots of surrounding because it went viral. There were attempts, there were kidnaps. Even in my own area, Council Kwali, Abaji was also a victim. Kuje was a regular post. And we came to realize that with first solutions that they tend to do, and that has gone down rapidly. Okay, the usual one that is known as the farmers headman clash, which has always been right from time, even with the planning. That's why it gives them a route that the farmers, that the rearers or the headmen take normally in the design concept you provide, and avenue where they have a passage without coming to the farmland. But because that has also not been in use, nobody wants to know where is left for the cattle rearer and where is the farmer. The buffer zone is something that nobody wants to do. So it becomes an issue. Nobody talks of it professionally. And trust me, in all of this analysis, with the representation, with even the presentation, you cannot give what you don't have. And most of the people uh, at the helm of affairs are struggling to even know what are the basic issues to present to the House. So I choose not to use it then, but I can use it formally that even in the quality of the representation we have, despite we lacking quantitatively, we're also lacking qualitatively.
All right. So I can only imagine your experience with mobilization at grassroots. There's a lot of movement in the APC, even at the top now. The party chairman just left. There are speculations, and I use the word speculations ahead of you by saying people from other parties like Alaji Kokosum may join in. There's speculations. Or is there confirmation of that yet?
Not yet. It's still a speculation until it's
Speculation.
happened.
Okay, I thought maybe you'd be privy to something I do not know. Okay, so Kokosum may come in. And I can start to imagine that when there's movement at the top, there's also movement at the bottom.
You know, I'm a honest and very straightforward analyst, and I want to leave it with you to take it out. A coalition of people seeking for power is different from people at the hem of affairs. How many times have people thought of governors that have moved to our party? They still control the states and they're still the chief security of the states. They did that willingly out of the passion and what has been allocated to the state to transform the states. We have control in state controls. When we lose some members, we have some states. So we balance it. It's a calculation that you don't expect me to come and tell, because our positions are always quick to know. Nobody will say that they are not.
But governors are not reliable. They could also move back.
Obviously, in this quick succession, I doubt much if a governor wants to dent his image by moving out of the party before an election and move back to the party. It's very hard. This is Nigeria we have. The only time it happened, and it happened shockingly, was Edo, when Obaseki lost out at the primaries that he thought he was played out and moved back to PDP to become. Then Dino Milai and Smart Adeyemi. These were the two classical examples. But aside that, you can tell no governor wants to do. The only time Saraki and Dogara did as leaders
governors
of the House,
fail.
Yeah, obviously, governor fails. But the presentations of it is that, exaggeratively in political analysis, governors still have the structures because they are now autonomies that place every chairman at the convenience level where he feels he's in a place that we're good. So it's still the governor that makes a call, and it's still based on what convinced him. As most of when they come to come, everybody says why his conviction. There are people that personally, as a party man, I've never seen them or hope seeing them join our party, but surprisingly they did, because have them in record. As much as people are shouting, have them in record. Governors in a long time have not had the allocations that this government give them to own and improve their states. What they did with their people is something different for the people to decide. But for the federal government in the federating units had discharged that to the local or to the governors to have it extended to the third tier of government, which is local government.
That is arguable, because if we were to open up the frontiers of local government autonomy and the likes of that, it will be a very intense argument.
It will definitely be. But when the process is highlighted, it's for the masses to know that if he's not intentional, he wouldn't pass the bill. If he's intentional, the process is marred by people whose interest is not favored. That is not the president to be blamed. But for him, he thought what the local people decide is to own their local government administration. And the 774 local government would have been more unanimously growing if everybody has his allocation and resources directly. But it also placed them in a check to know that some of the chairmen have little to show for what they've gotten, even as much as we told you that FCT is as autonomous as it has always been, with serious amount of money being sent to area council. All of these things still back down to what I said. For those that know what they did with the resources, they know. For those that know that they did what they don't deserve to even be in the people's eye, will never have time to still do anything. But what we're saying and what we want to round up with, this is Nigeria. This is our own land. We know when we are contributing positively, and we know when things impact us negatively. And use your right decisions. Don't use your sentiment. Because whenever sentiment becloud our senses of reasoning and judging, then we'll always have the repercussions of not having leaders that feel for us, but leaders that we feel for an interest that is not defined. And mind you, politics is a game of number. But what if this number is used ignorantly and sentimentally? that becomes the option of what we have in the helm of affairs rather than what we have in executing what we need for us to develop as a Nigeria. And finally, it's not in ignorance to remember that even the military administrators have what we call the National Development Plan. What happened to it? We don't even have a short-time National Development Plan. No. Medium time, no long time. These are things that people should ask the Ministry of Economic Planning. What is the plan? What is the attribute? I know that for once, as I was involved in the strategic plan by the Ministry of Social Duties from 2024 to 2028. And that also is there, but not all people are even mindful of what are the strategic plan. What happens differently is that the same department is supposed to be responsive to all constituency projects and social interventions. But is it the case when the National Assembly still know that they have an input to do because they determine what they do with the constituency projects and what they do with social intervention? This is another thing for another day.
Oh, yes.
But obviously, these are the issues that needed to be highlighted. Sometimes it's just a little bit highlight to remember the people that are still of conscious mind, because some people will think your analysis are very sentiment, but trust me, they are more honest to the best of what I want Nigerian to be. Nigeria must be great again.
Honorable Sadiq Abubakar Ahmad, thank you so much for coming on Volume with FemiDlive. I'm grateful to you. Thank you for your analysis, your in-depth points, and of course, being clear about some of the things that we look forward to. We hope to engage you sometime again.
Thank you very much.
Many thanks to everybody for joining in. I do hope you have comments to share with them. Please drop your comments just below the video you're watching. And yes, we're excited to take them on and also as well share with them as we build up. And that's it on Volume with FemiDlive.